Good morning, good morning, good morning. Shabbat Shalom.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Torah Study 5778. Right? I want to welcome Rabbi Monson from Philadelphia and wish him mazel tov on the birth of a new grandson whose bris was celebrated this week. And his son, Ami, who's our youth educator, did a brilliant thing. Knowing how difficult rabbinical school is, he named his son Rabbi. Now the kid doesn't have to go through seminary. The rest of his life he'll be Rabbi Monson without having to go through what we went through. You know, all those pages of Talmud. So congratulations to the Monson family and much joy among all of you. Come on in. Please come in. This is Bill Green. Everybody wish Bill Green mazel tov. Bill was the one who pushed that red button that sent the Cassini spacecraft hurtling into Saturn. And the pictures it got back, they found the first minion on Saturn, right? It's actually two of them, the one they go to and the one I wouldn't be caught dead in. You know, so mazel tov to the people, your friends at NASA and JPL. Yeah, it's a great mission. The problem is, you know, you send a spacecraft in 1997, it sends back pictures in 2017. It's like on a fax machine, right? I mean, the technology changed so much, you know? Right. Mazel tov to your friends at NASA. For those who wanted to know, my dad's doing much better this week. Yeah, really amazing. They took out his breathing tube. He's talking to us. Right away was very thirsty. We gave him some water. They let him have some chocolate pudding. Yesterday, my brother brought a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. And my father looked at it and said, I can't eat that. And then he did. So he polished off the whole thing. So they moved him to a regular room. He's on the 4th floor of Kaiser Woodland Hills. Now you can go visit him. So anyone who wants to go visit him. Trudy passed away.
Oh.
I'm sorry. She never woke up. She never woke up from the fire. So we're with her family. Our prayers are with her family, and we're hoping that they have peace. And Trudy was his caretaker, my dad's caretaker, who's part of our shul for the last 12 years. So, because not yet. You know, because when someone dies in an unnatural way, they have to do an investigation to make sure there was no foul play. So she's caught up in that right now. She's caught up in the. Well, we're back to playing the thermostat game. Things are normal at BBS. A couple of announcements this morning. Following our learning together, we have a service in the other room. There's meditation minyan this morning as well. This morning, our dear friend Harvey Keenan is celebrating his second bar mitzvah. He's 83. Harvey's a volunteer in many different areas of the shul and the counseling center, runs a men's group here. And Harvey's going to celebrate his second bar mitzvah. He mastered, sort of half an aliyah. With his granddaughters, so we're going to celebrate with Harvey this morning. Tonight is Slichot. Tonight is that famous service. Now, the tradition was among Ashkenazic Jews, the tradition among Sephardim and Persian Jews is to spend the whole month getting up at midnight and praying for forgiveness. Among Ashkenazim Jews, because we're lightweights, we just do it on the Saturday night before Yontif. So tonight, we don't do it at midnight either, because that's like a little difficult. So tonight we begin at 7 with some learning. If you got the email, the video on Makor, come on in. So there'll be some text. I'll do some text learning. Rabbi Farkas is going to do some poetry learning, and Rabbi Hoffman will do some meditation service for about an hour. And then we're going to do have snack. We have dessert. We have Havdalah. We'll change the Torah mantles, and the service should begin at around 8:30. The Slichot service lasts about an hour. And then those who'd like to stay late, there's a late night traditional recitation of Slichot for anyone who'd like to stay and to enjoy that together. So that's tonight. Please come. Everybody's welcome. And there'll be a nice milchik dessert. Come in. So don't come fleishiks. Okay? And then the holiday begins on Wednesday. For me, it begins on Monday. For the holiday begins on Wednesday night. If you're a member of Ali Beth Shalom, you should have already received your tickets. Open the envelope and make sure they're there. If they're not there, they should come in today's mail. If you don't get them by Monday, call the synagogue in a panic and scream call the synagogue and tell them you didn't get them. It just means that, that somebody from the U.S. government pilfered them. And we'll send you a new set, or we'll have them waiting for you here at Will Call, okay? If you have don't have plans for the holidays, we would love to have you here. Valley Beshalom is a lovely, warm community, and we pray and learn and celebrate the holidays. All you got to do is call the synagogue office and say, hey, I'd love to be here for the holidays, and we'll make that happen. We will not let finances get in anybody's way. There's going to be an editorial in the Jewish Journal this week, somebody complaining that it's too expensive. You just tell the person you're talking to what your circumstances are, and we'll make this possible for you. Okay, we want everybody to be able to have a place to pray for the holidays. So if you're a student and you're starving, we'll make this, it'll be a gift. If you're a millionaire, we will make a mitzvah you can't believe. You will be able to earn your place in the world to come with one check. Either way, you'll be here. You'll be part of a community to celebrate the new year, and it would be very sweet to have you here. I'm asked to make the following announcement. Because of the construction, which is now going on quite in earnest out here, we've lost an entire parking lot. So parking is going to be even more difficult than it usually is. If you're so inclined, there is an organization in the world called Uber, right? If you have Uber on your phone, you just call Uber and they will bring you here, and it's $5 off. It's really cheap. For some of you who live close by, that's cheap. That's more than the fare would be. So it would be free, okay? And Uber means you don't have to park. You get pulled up right in the VIP section, come right off. If you don't know what I'm talking about from Uber, if you look in the synagogue literature, there is a site called Go Grandparent, where you call a phone number and they call Uber. There's some 15-year-old kid who will say, sure, where do you want to go? And they'll take care of this for you. They'll have somebody come and get you. What? It's an amazing thing. So it's much easier than trying to, if you have to park, we'll have parking, and the parking regulations in the neighborhood will be suspended. It just happens to be that Thursday's garbage day in this neighborhood. So that means it's going to make it even harder. So just be careful you don't park in anyone's driveway. Be careful that you don't block people in, otherwise they get kind of ticked and they come yelling at us. Okay, so but try to take the alternative ways of getting here. That would be Lyft is also the one. Lyft also gives you $5 off, and that ends up being pretty good. And if you come here and you really can't find parking, there is parking in that big white building next door. And when you come to the guard station, take one of the coupons. And they'll make sure that you get in for cheap. You get in and out for cheap. Okay? Yontif begins Wednesday night. There's two services at 6 and at 7:30. At 6 in the sanctuary with the cantors. At 7:30, Nina and I do a little show together. It's the only time of the year my wife and I lead services together. That's how our marriage is so happy. But Nina does beautiful music. For those of you who've gone to the Neshama Minyan, and I'll speak, but not long. It's not going to be the big sermon. It's just a short sermon. And then on Thursday and Friday, we have main services, and everybody's invited. You'll need a ticket to get in, because we're very careful about security. You will see a lot of security when you come to the shul. There's a lot of police officers and private security because we're protecting the place. You need a ticket to get in. If you don't have a ticket, call the office. We'll get you one. Come on in. And once you're here, you have an assigned seat, but you can really sit anywhere, unless someone comes and says, you're sitting in my seat, in which case, be gracious, get up and let them sit on your lap. Okay? All right, is that cool? Everybody okay with Yontif? And then it's Thursday and Friday. Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock at Lake Balboa, we do tashlich. So bring some old bread and all of your accumulated sin. And meet us at 5 o'clock at the edge of Lake Balboa. That's the Bielenson Park, right off of Balboa near Victory, between Victory and Burbank. And we meet at the lake. We do a ceremony of tashlich. And over the last few years, we've invited everybody to bring their dog, because we do tashlish, okay? And at the end of the ceremony, we will have a very short ceremony of bar mitzvah, where we will give your dog a very special blessing, canine ahara, okay? So please bring your dog. Don't throw the dog into the water. Don't do that. But we'll throw our sins in the water and we'll bless the dogs, okay? So please come and bring the dogs and bring kids and come comfortable. It's a really nice way to finish the holiday. And then Shabbos is Friday night, and then Shabbos morning, next Shabbos morning here at the shul, Shabbos Shuvah, and our guest will be Congressman Brad Sherman, who's going to give us a sort of update on where the world is right now Brad sits on all the international relations committees, and especially the international committees having to do with the Middle East and terrorism. Has a lot to say about America and the world, and God knows we have a lot to do tshuva for. So please come next week, and we'll have Torah study like usual, and then davening, and then the congressman. Okay, is that everything? Did I leave anything out? Any questions? Is that clear? Yeah. What time is the congressman going to speak? About more or less 11 o'clock. Okay, when will he finish? That I couldn't tell you, right? Because he's a congressman. When he finishes, he'll finish, right? You know, hi, come on in. You can come in. There's a little room. Myrola, come in. Amola, come in. Come on, come in. It's okay. We got to get a bigger room. We got to build a bigger building here. Mark, I'm going to need you to get up for a second. Friday, 5 o'clock at Lake Balboa. You'll note I'll be there with a big, big yellow hat, so you can find us. And it's not hard to find us. There's a lot of us. All the people from Adat Ariel come too, so there's a lot of us casting our sins across the water. Ducks, the holy ducks of Encino. These ducks eat better than any ducks in the universe. You know the joke about the guy that builds a sukkah in his backyard and his neighbor complains and takes him to court because it's against the zoning? And the judge says, I fine for the plaintiff and I give the defendant 8 days to remove that thing. It's against the law to gather in the park without a permit, and it's against the law to throw bread into the water for the ducks. And they're going to give us exactly 24 hours to right, to desist. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, okay? All right, everybody got holidays down? If you got your tickets, good. If you haven't got your tickets and you're expecting them, they should come today. If they don't come today, call Monday and just mention to the office. We'll find out where they are. If you haven't got your tickets, please call and make arrangements. We'd love to have you for shul. And it would be very important to share with the community the coming new year, okay? We are at the end of the Torah. This is it. The last sort of portions. According to the Midrash, the portions that we read today were the words that Moses spoke in his last day on earth. There's actually 4 parshiot that are left. The last 2, Ha'azinu and Zot HaBracha, we read during the course of the week of Simchas Torah. But this is the sort of the last Shabbos reading there is. And it's a double portion. Together, they don't add up to one portion. They're very short. It's called Nitzavim Vayelech, and you'll find it on 1165. So the guy has been leading us through the desert for the last 40 years, and now he's 120 years old. And we, of course, aren't the ones who came out of Egypt. We're the children of those people. We're the ones born in the desert who have only heard these stories from our parents before they passed. But this guy has always been there. And, because we're younger, he's always been something of a mystery. Who is this old guy, this Moses? This Moses who speaks with an Egyptian accent. This Moses who surrounded by so much legend. This Moses who, he's getting old, so over the last years, you haven't seen very much of him, right? We've been camped out here on the plains of Moab, ready to cross the Jordan and enter the land. And here's this cat, Moses. And finally, at the end of the end, he gathers us all together. And this is the closing speech. This is the end. This is his last day. This is his will and testament. He's looking at this people, and this people now is significantly younger than him, because these are the children and the grandchildren of those he rescued from Egypt, right? And he's thinking about what's going to happen when he's gone, and what's going to happen when they enter the land, and what are they going to know, and what are they going to think, and what's the psychology of entering the land. In last week's Torah portion, Ki Tavo, there's this long section of a whole ceremony of what he wants us to do when we get to the land. He wants us to stand between these 2 mountains, and people will call out the blessings and curses for the activities that people might do. And then he warned us about what happens if you break this covenant. But now comes the last, this is it. This is the ethical will of Moses. The last will and testament of Moses. So guy's lived 120 years. What has he got to say to his people? And remember, what's ironic about all of this, of course, is that when he was first commissioned, 40-something years ago, when he was first commissioned, he said to God, Lo ish devarim anochi. I'm not a man of words. Okay, this book, by the way, is called Devarim. Somehow he found words. Lo ish devarim anochi. Many times people say that's because he had some sort of speech impediment. I don't think it's a physical speech impediment. I think it's a moral speech impediment. What he was saying was, I'm not a public man. I don't have words for the public. I live a private life. I take care of sheep. I'm good with sheep, but you don't have to give speeches to sheep. Sheep don't appreciate speeches. I don't have anything to say. I haven't concluded anything from life. Life hasn't really taught me anything yet. Now he comes to the very end of his life, and life has taught him something. So the overall question of the book of Deuteronomy, of this book of Devarim, this fifth book of the Torah, is, how did Moses learn? How do any of us learn? At what point in your life are you able to say, I have something I want to say to my kids. I have something I want to say to my grandchildren. I have something I want to say to the world. I have discovered the rules of life. I have discovered the patterns, the structures of life that give you a life worth living. At what point does a person say, I think I know something now? Right? I've gone through this. I'm sure you've gone through. When I was 15, I knew everything. Just ask my dad. I knew 17. I was much smarter than everybody at 17, right? And then somewhere in the middle of your 20s, 30s, maybe, you discover you don't know anything. Moses is, 80 by the time he hits the burning bush. I don't know anything. I have nothing to say. Just shush still. Be quiet. A private person. Somehow at the end of life, you get some sense of, now I have wisdom. Now I have wisdom. So what's the wisdom? How do you gain wisdom? At what point do you say, now I know something? This is an interesting Rosh Hashanah thought to have. You're going to be sitting in synagogue for a long time. Whatever shul you go to, you're going to be sitting in synagogue for a long time. So one of the questions you might want to ask yourself is, what would I want to write to my kids? What would I want to say to my family, to the people I care for, to the people who I leave behind in the world after me? What is the accumulated wisdom of my lifetime? What have I learned from my upbringing, from my work in the world, from my relationships, from the tragedies I faced, from the disappointments, the failures, and the successes, and the triumphs? What have I learned? We're about to read Moses' learning, and it's remarkably interesting. So turn with me now to 1165. We fundamentally have here two chapters of Bible. We're going to read them all just going to read them today. Because they're so interesting, and just a close reading is such an interesting reading of this text and what it says. And you'll see why this is the text that's perfectly timed for the beginning of these holidays. Okay? You okay, Gelman?
So far.
Good, okay.
I'm waiting for you to say something.
I know. So good. It's good to have a rabbinic conscience in the room, Again, don't hold back, okay? Atem Nitzavim hayom kulchem. Interesting opening, right? Nitzavim means to stand up, to be present, to be here. Atem, this is Moses to his people. Atem Nitzavim hayom. That word hayom means today. And it's one of these interesting words in the way that the rabbis, the Midrash, will understand it is, it's one of these words that jumps off the page. He's not just talking to the people who stand in front of him thousands of years ago. He's talking hayom, to everybody, to we who are reading it. Atem nitzavim hayom, kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem, all of you in front of God. This is not just religion for rabbis. Religion for rabbis would look very different. Religion for priests would look very different. Religion for tzaddikim, for righteous people, would be very different. It's for everybody. Rashechem, shiftechem, ziknechem, shotrechem, everybody. Kolish, Everybody is included. Your tribals, your elders, your officials, all the people of Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger from the wood chopper to the water drawer. Wood chopper, water drawer, these are the professions. Everybody's included in this. This is not a faith just for the faithful. There are faiths that are structured that the common people support a monk, and the monk does religion for you. We're not one of these. That's not us. That's not us, right? We don't have one of these faiths where the rabbi keeps kosher and you don't have to. That doesn't work. This is for everybody. This is a faith for everybody. Even the stranger, even the person who comes to attach themselves to our community is included in this instruction. To enter into the covenant of the Lord your God, which God is concluding with you this day, and its sanctions. Now, it's interesting, is he concluding a covenant, but we've already had a covenant, right? We had a covenant at Sinai. So what's the relationship between this covenant that he's talking about here and the one we concluded at Sinai? I'm going to ask you that a little bit later as we get into this, right? To the end. That's a great word. Lima'an. For what purpose? My teacher, Rabbi Schulweis, used to say, for what? What's it for? Or better yet, let me ask it in a harder way. What difference does it make? What difference does religion make? I mean, Schulweis was a pragmatist, which means to him the truth of religion was not its metaphysical truth or its logical coherence. The question of religion was, what difference does it make in the real life of real people? For Schulweis, the question is, what does it do to your character, which is the pattern of your behaviors as you interact with the world? He said, I don't know if you believe in God or don't believe in God, or what God you say you believe in, or what God you profess not to believe in. To me, he said, that's not all that important. Because there are days when we are believers and there are days when we are belief flags. The question is, what difference does it make in the way that you live? Liman, for what purpose? To make you what kind of person? Right? So the question of religion is not, is it true? The question is, what kind of person does this religion shape? That's the truth of religion for Schulweis. And Moses understands that because he learned from Rabbi Schulweis, and so he puts the word liman, so that, for what? For a teleology, for a purpose. For a purpose. Billy, you got something?
So, when we're concluding this covenant, there will be no additions?
We'll see. Wait, don't get that. You can't conclude that yet. No additions. Yeah, this is the last Jewish book ever published. No, seriously. If this were the concluding word of all of Jewish wisdom, we'd have the book, the Torah. That's it, no more. What are all those other thousands and thousands of books that I was forced to learn in seminary? We wouldn't need them. But the idea that it's an open covenant becomes interesting. So hold on to that thought. To the end, that's verse 12, that he may establish you this day as his people and be your God, as he promised to do and swore to your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I make this covenant with its sanctions, not with you alone, but with those who are standing here with us today, before the Lord our God, and with those who are not here with us today. So this is a forever covenant. So the question is, can you make a covenant with people who aren't there? Can you establish a contract, a deal, an agreement with people who aren't present to accept it? This is an interesting question. Sorry, what?
That's our responsibility to teach.
Well, that's the question. The question is, can I? Yeah, that's actually exactly the question. Am I permitted to include my children in something that I agree to? Right? Kids, guess what? Guess who we're going to be from now on? Right? Or do the children have a right to say, I don't want it? You see? It's an interesting question.
Legally, no.
Legally what?
No.
No.
Spiritually, yes.
Well, that's an interesting question. Legally, no. Morally, spiritually, yes.
Well, actually, legally, I think the answer is yes. You could say.
He's a lawyer, is it? Yeah.
My successor can sign, and that's quite often done in most legal contracts.
Really? Okay. So successors are implicated in the obligations of a contract.
Binds my successors and signs.
It binds my successors. Okay. right?
It's a contract.
Let's put it the other way. Let's put it in a moral sense. As a parent, am I permitted to impose values upon my child? Or am I expected to let the child choose his own values? No. Think about this for a second, you know. What?
You impose it on a kid at a bris.
Well, I know I impose it at a bris. That's why lots of parents don't want to have brises for their kids, because they don't like the idea. They think it's authoritarian to impose upon their children values that they find meaningful. And someone has just sighed, a beautiful sigh. Did you hear that sigh? Yeah. That was such a beautiful sigh, because the response is, even choosing not to impose values is an imposed value. Because if you choose not to impose values, you've chosen to raise your child in a moral vacuum. The truth is, there's no such thing as a moral vacuum, right? The kid knows you're making choices, sees you're making choices. More than that, the kid lives in a culture. In our culture, it's rather intrusive. I don't know if you know this, but wherever you go, it's pointing right at you, right? And that culture makes choices for you. So if you don't choose for your child, McDonald's, Exxon, and Apple will. No, I'm very serious. There's a rather pronounced billboard across the street for an outfit that's apparently headquartered across the street, although, what? 1166. The outfit, I think, is some sort of Beverly Hills plastic surgeon, and there's a woman, Kanai Nahara, and it says, you can have Kanai Nahara for $3,500 a pop. I don't know if that means for the pair or for each. And I don't know if it goes up if you go up. I don't know how that works. But, but that says something about human self-worth. And the question is, do I let that billboard teach my son how to look at a woman and teach my daughter what the content of her self-worth is? Or do I teach them something different? And I take this very seriously, because I have a lot of teenagers in this building who are struggling with these issues, really seriously. So the question is, can I ever get away from teaching my kid values? Let's go a little farther. Well, you know that we dwelt in the land of Egypt. We passed through the midst of various nations. So here's giving him, now you're giving, the beginning of any covenant is a review of our history. You know how we got here, right? He says. And the fetishes of wood and stone and silver that they keep. And now look at verse 17. Perchance, maybe, ulai, pen. There is among you some man or woman, some clan or tribe, whose heart is now turning away from the Lord your God and worship the gods of those nations. This is going to be the watchword of this parak, of this chapter. Elsewhere in the Torah, we are told you are to behave in a certain way. And if you don't behave in that way, then there are sanctions that fall upon you. That's what happened at the end of Ki Tavo, at the end of last week. This covenant's different. And maybe it's because he's now 120 years old, and this is his last breath. And maybe it's because it's a different point of view. But here he's not interested so much in behavior as he is in commitment. Look at the word. The word is lifnot, to turn. You will turn away from God. He's not interested in and else the whole Torah is about your behavior. But here he's not interested. He's turning about, this is love. This is love. We have this covenant is a chuppah, is a ksuba. I mean, this is a marriage. Perhaps you're going to decide you like the neighbor better. Perhaps you're going to commit an act of infidelity. That's what this is. So here we're talking not about, usually we Jews are talking empirically about behavior. It's all mitzvahs, right? Here we're talking about something that we Jews don't often talk about. Something called faith. Something called faith, the turning of a heart, a sense of loyalty, a sense of personal connection, a sense of attachment. And he says, maybe you're not interested in this attachment, right? Perchance there's among you a stock, that is a family, a group of you, sprouting poison weed and wormwood. What he means by that is, if you follow that impulse, it's going to destroy you. Right? Poison weed and wormwood are plants that will kill you. Instead of eating that which is nutritious, you're going to follow that which is poisonous. When such one hears the words of these sanctions, he may fancy himself immune, thinking I shall be safe, though I follow my own willful heart. So he says, look, I don't need this God. And I don't need the truth that this God is setting out. I'm smarter than him. I have my own way. I don't need, see, you say to the kid, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you this. There are rules to the universe. And if you violate the rules to the universe, you're going to get hurt. And the kid says to you, what do you know, old fart? I'll go my own way. I'll go my own way. You say, kid, all I can do is tell you now. Right? I say this to bar mitzvah families all the time. I scare the hell out of bar mitzvah parents. I say, you know, when you were younger and you got into trouble, we could fix it. You are now old enough to make mistakes we can't fix. That's what bar mitzvah really means. I said to the kid, I said to the parents, there's going to be a kid who's in school with you now who's not going to make it to see 12th grade. He's going to overdose on drugs. He's going to drive when he's drunk. He's going to hurt himself in some terrible, horrible way. They're going to be irresponsible in their sexual relations. There's going to be a kid that you're in school with now who's not going to make it to 12th grade because that's the world you live in. Listen carefully, kid. There are rules to the universe. There are moral rules which are every bit as binding as the rule of gravity. If you ever think that try disobeying gravity just once. Gravity's a bear, let me tell you. Right? You jump, I mean, and the moral rules are the same way. If you say, well, listen, what do you know, old guy? What do you know? You know, you lived in a generation where people broke the rules. And I say, yeah, and I know what happens if you do. I witnessed it. No, old fart, let me go my way. Okay, gesundheit. Go, right? I shall be safe. I'll be okay. Don't worry about it. Right? The Lord will never forgive him. That's a hell of a statement. Never forgive him? So hold on to that thought, because we're going to come back to that thought in a minute. Never forgive him? Rather will the Lord God anger and passion against that man, till every sanction recorded in the book comes down on him, and the Lord blots his name from under heaven. Right? The Lord will single him out from the tribes of Israel in misfortune, in accordance with all the sanctions, and later generations will ask, the children who succeed you, and the foreigners who come from distant lands, and see the plagues and diseases the Lord has inflicted on that land, and all of its soil devastated by sulfur and salt, beyond sowing, producing no grass, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, and the Lord overthrew him in his fierce anger, and all the nations will ask, what did he do? What did he do to piss off God? Right? Why did the Lord do this to this land? Wherefore this awful wrath? And they will be told, because they forsook the covenant that God made with them, freed them from the land of Egypt, turned to the service of other gods who had not experienced. So the Lord was incensed and uprooted them in anger, fury, great wrath, and cast them into another land, as is still the case. There's a lot of science that says these chapters were written after the exile. This is a historical thing, right? These are people who suffered. And then it gives you this little, at the end here, and you can see just, if you look in the Hebrew on page 1168, there's this little paragraph at the end, which is, It's not consistent with the previous section. It just throws in this idea, and we'll come back to this idea. So, having said all of that, right? What does it say? Hanistarot la'Adonai Eloheinu v'niglaot lanu lavanenu. Concealed acts concern the Lord our God. Overt acts, it is for us and our children ever to apply the provisions of the teaching. And if you look at it, those of you who have the Hebrew in front of you, if you look at verse 28, you see it? You see the little stars over those letters? Right. That's one of the traditions. There's a half a dozen traditions in the Torah scroll itself, where the scribe has a tradition of adding something to the letters. That's the way it's written in the Torah. There's like weird things, like, hey, look at this. So in the middle of this discussion of covenantal loyalty and disloyalty, you get this really weird verse. What does he mean? Hidden things belong to God. Revealed things belong to people. What does that mean? So hold on to that thought. We're going to come back to that too. I'm promising a lot, I know, but we're coming back. Now remember that line about if you go the other way, God will never forgive you? Right, so the language in this chapter, if you follow this chapter carefully in the Hebrew, the language you'll hear is the language of lifnot, meaning to turn. Yeah, lifnim, but this is lifnot, to turn. In other words, turning. If you're going in a certain direction, if you turn to another direction, if you decide to turn away, if you decide to turn back, remember Mrs. Lot? What happens if you go backwards? Right? And how many of us in life have always wanted to do what Mrs. Lot wanted to do? Which is, I can't face the future that's coming. I want to turn backwards. I don't want to face what's coming. So what happens to Mrs. Lot? Turns into what? Salt. Why salt?
Bad for
Yeah,
you.
I know it's bad. Thank you, Dr. Maurer. Exactly right. Bad for what, by the way? It's bad for your heart. It'll kill your heart, right? Why salt?
Crying, tears.
Yeah, it could be tears, right. Bitter. What happens when you put salt on the ground? Nothing grows. Nothing grows. Salt is death.
The Dead Sea.
Yeah, exactly right. The Dead Sea is the saltiest sea in the world, right? Right? So if you turn back, this is all about turning. You have a direction you're moving in. That's the direction of blessing. But if you decide to turn away, that's the direction of death. So the question I'm going to ask you as we finish this chapter and move to the next is simply this. What are those rules? Are there rules to the universe that you desperately want to tell your children and your grandchildren? Because you've discovered in your years in the world that if you follow that way of being, you'll end up happy, or at least you have a chance at happiness. And if you break those rules, just like gravity, life comes crashing down on you like a ton of bricks. And there are these rules, and they're not evident, because every kid thinks he knows better. And you say, kid, listen to me. I've suffered this. I'm telling you, don't do this. Follow this way. I mean, you hear the desperation in his voice? I always tell you, that when I read this chapter, I can think of one moment in my life that this chapter appeals to, and that's the moment standing in the dormitory door when I dropped my kids off at college. I drove my kid, I flew with my kid, two of my kids went to Bloomington, so we flew to Indianapolis, drove through the backcountry of Indiana to Bloomington, got to Foster, moved my kid into the room, set up his computer, put his books on his shelf, put his socks in the drawer. Right? Then I'm a father, so I reach in my wallet and give him $20. That's how a father says I love you, right? And then you're standing there and the kid says, okay, Dad. Yeah, the kid's saying like, all right already, get out of here. There's some cute girls next door. And the daddy's saying to himself, I just got one more thing I want to tell you, That's the poignancy here. I got one more, because I know that the moment I turn my back, the moment that door closes, you're going to go your own way, and God knows what's going to happen to you. So that's that one more truth I want you to know. It's poor Moses got one more breath in his body. I just want you to know there's a way of blessing and there's a way of curse. Just listen to me. I know this stuff, he says. But now watch, something else he puts in here, and this is the Rosh Hashanah reading, chapter 30. See, that would be the end of the speech, right? If I'm standing in the dormitory door, that's the end of the speech. But Moses goes one more step to introduce a new idea, which is brand new to the Torah. In this chapter, 11 times the word shuv is going to appear. Now here's what's ironic. Shuv and panah, to turn, both mean to turn. Means the same word, shuv and panah. Lashuv or lifnot means the same thing, except lifnot means to turn away, and shuv means, Bob, To turn back. To turn back. Shuv means to turn back. And here is why the God of Israel is different. Here is the moral genius of Deuteronomy. When all these things befall you, v'haya ki yavo alav kol hadvarim haeleh, when all this falls down on your head, and the blessings and the curses I've set before you, and you take them to heart amidst the various nations to which the Lord your God has banished you, you're going to be out there in a world all by yourself, and you're not going to be protected. And when you're out there by yourself, something's going to happen to you. And you return to the Lord your God. V'shavta ad Adonai. Now, it should say, V'shavta el Adonai. For those of you who know Hebrew. What's the difference between ad Adonai and el Adonai? Here's the difference.
Up to the point.
Yeah.
To the point.
Right. You say to the kid, you're going to disobey me, I know it, and you're going to suffer, and then you're going to want to come home. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you wait at the front door. Ad Adonai means you will get to the front door, but that's as far as you're getting. You're not getting in the house. I will not let you into the house. Why not? What do I want to be sure of before I let you back in the house? That you really learned something. Ad Adonai. And I'll let you honor the doormat, but that's as far as you're going, kid. Right? You come back, Ad Adonai, and you return to God, meaning what? You and your children heed his command with all your heart and soul, just as I enjoin you this day. What's the purpose of exile? Exile is not punitive. It's not just to hurt you because God was hurt. It's not just a show it's not just a show of arbitrary power by a God who can kick you off the land whenever he damn well pleases. There is a purpose to exile. What's the purpose to exile? You got to learn something. It's God's curriculum. And in a certain way, this is his theory of Jewish history. Jewish history is set up to teach the Jewish people how to think about the world. And in order to think about the world with a certain degree of empathy, you have to suffer. And you're going to suffer, because suffering's part of life. Right? I don't know how many of you got that call about 6 weeks into the first semester of college from your kid who said, I want to come home. I don't like it here. What happened? I got to see in calculus. My boyfriend broke up with me. My roommate threw up on my bed. You know, you get all of that good stuff. Right? I want to come home. I want to be a child again. I don't want to be a grown-up. I don't want to be a grown-up. I want to be a kid again. Yeah. I want to be, it's Peter Pan. I don't like it here in Oz. I want to go back to Kansas. Right? And so the kid says, I want to come home. Right? When the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. Then the Lord your God. Look at 3. Vishav Adonai Elohecha et shvutcha v'rachamecha. That's a beautiful line. So, you do tshuva, you turn back to God, and what does God do? Vishav Adonai Elohecha, God will take you back. Take you back. V'richamchecha, which means love you again. Right? Vishav, and God will return you. He will bring you together again from all the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. This is the beginning of the idea of tshuva. What's the idea of tshuva? Right? The idea of tshuva is, no matter how far away you get, you can always come home. We'll let you can come home. No matter how distant you get, you can come home again. You're welcome back in this home. You're welcome back. This God will take you back. There is no such thing as eternal damnation in Judaism. It's an amazing idea, you know, because you can imagine the opposite, right? You imagine the opposite. I can read you the sermon, right? It's Cotton Mather's, like a spider hanging over the fire of hell. That's that Calvinist vision, Puritan vision that America was based on. But this notion that there is no eternal damnation. The purpose of Exile is educational. It's a curriculum. And you will come back. And when you come back, you'll be loved. You'll be accepted. You'll be welcomed home. I know you screwed up, but now you're back. This tshuva, this is a remarkable idea. Now, here's one of the questions I want you to think about. Do people change? Do people change? Can a person who has a pattern of destructive behaviors change? Does a person who have a pattern of destructive beliefs change? Can a nation change? Can a community change? Does change happen? Or is it simply superficial and we're destined to go and repeat the pattern over and over again? Do people really, and this is a really powerful, you want to know the difference, the deep down and ideological difference between Judaism and Christianity is that question. Because Christianity said, no, you are inveterately, incurably sinful. Meaning, you are evil to your core, and there's nothing that can be done about it except to attach yourself to the Son of God. I mean, that's really Pauline Christianity. The meaning of original sin is that sin is built into you. It's endemic. It's part of your hardware. It can't be undone. So only with the intervention of the Son of God can you find purity. The Jewish tradition says, I can do tshuva. There's a tremendous faith in the power of human beings to learn, to grow, and to change. Otherwise, Yom Kippur wouldn't make any sense. Yom Kippur only makes sense if the idea is I can really change and grow. I can look back at the year past and imagine myself a different person in the year forward. I can imagine myself entertaining a different pattern of responses to the world. I can imagine myself acting differently. Acting differently. And this is a very powerful statement. Are you allowed back? At what point are you allowed back? It's a really interesting question. All right, I see the look. Oh my God. Wow. I can read your face already. All right, go ahead. What do you think?
All right. So what if the opposite is true?
Yeah.
What if this is the childish faith?
Okay.
And the opposite is the real faith?
Meaning what?
What if the nistarot
Mm-hmm.
is the real meaning that only teachers like Ben Azai and Immanuel Kant were able to grasp?
Okay.
That the reward of a good deed
Yeah.
is the good deed itself,
Right.
not the payoff. Because my first teacher was Richard Rubinstein,
Okay.
who left Judaism, became an atheist, because he read this very passage.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it obligates me to believe that the victims of the Holocaust sinned and deserved their fate.
Right.
I cannot believe that. That is an obscenity, and I reject it all.
Right.
So there is an impossibility to this.
Right.
Also, you and I
Wait. Describe that. Elaborate that.
Yeah.
Open that up a second.
The impossibility is that we know through our direct experience that innocent people suffer.
Right.
That they have not gone astray.
Right.
That they have not, people who have not violated the commandments suffer horribly.
Yeah. Right.
And people who live reprehensible lives die in old age and wealth.
Right.
So the fact is that we must reconcile morality with the consequences
Right.
of our lives.
Okay.
The problem with Deuteronomy
Yeah.
is that it makes a connection that is both morally wrong, philosophically wrong,
Okay.
and personally destructive.
All right. Let me ask you a question.
Other than that, it's great.
Yeah. No. Here's my question. Okay. It's a question, with due respect, that I ask the kids when they ask me the great questions. Is the Bible true?
Right.
How can Adam and Eve, who only had 2 boys, have filled the world with people? Don't you think the people who wrote this knew that?
No.
Really?
I believe that they had in their mind, like Calvin did,
Yeah.
that your fate in the world
Yeah.
is a direct result of your behavior. And the rabbis reaffirmed it.
See,
Mipnei chata'enu gilinu me'artzenu.
Yeah, well, that happens to be empirically true, by the way, because and the sin was sinat chinam, but that's a different thing.
There's always sin.
No, no, hang on a minute.
We weren't always exiled.
Here's where, so you and I agree with you that if you say that my fate in the world, my destiny in the world is attached to my morality, the world just doesn't work that way. There's no question.
Right.
Look, we know sweet, wonderful people who suffer horribly, and we know just despicably horrible people who, do rather well, thank you, right? I have to believe that the guys who wrote this knew that too. They knew that, that thieves who plant stolen seeds, it rains on their fields like it rains on everybody else's fields, and they had to know that diseases strike the righteous, and they had to know that. And so if they knew, let me just finish the thought, and then we can argue. Sorry. They had to have known that. And therefore, they didn't mean this to be read that way. There are small people who read it that way. There are small people who read it that way. And so they go around judging people, right? It's the prosperity gospel. But I can't believe that sensitive, kind people who live in the same world I live. And hell, they lived in a different world than I live in. They lived in a world without antiseptics and anesthetics and without weather prediction. Right? There was a hurricane that just decimated Houston. The only reason that thousands and thousands and thousands of people didn't die is because we saw it coming. There was a hurricane at the beginning of the 20th century that hit Galveston, and 6,000 people died. The difference is you put on the Weather Channel and it said it's going to rain like hell, move. And so, God forbid, it was terrible. 42 people died. When you think about 48 inches of rain and 125-mile-an-hour wind and only 42 people died? So I have to believe that they knew that too. So therefore what? So therefore I have to read this, I think they intended it to be read in a different way. I'm not disagreeing with you. I love Rubinstein's scream. It's not even theology, it's a scream. It's a scream to his community, take seriously.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The problem is, I don't think they meant it to be read this way. Hang on one second.
I agree with that.
Good.
And that's what the Nitzavim does.
Yeah, okay.
That is, the Torah is teaching on two levels. One, on everything.
Yeah.
On everything. It says you want
You everybody follow the argument here? You don't follow the argument? I want to make sure you're following the argument, because it's a good argument.
What's these
Nistar, in the last paragraph where the little dots are, the hidden things. So Rabbi Gelman is commenting on that, the hidden things. When it says the concealed acts, it's not concealed acts. The Hebrew word is nistarot, which means secrets. The secret things concern God or belong to God. That's really the language. The secret things belong to God. The revealed, the visible things belong to us.
And this is why that's critical.
Yeah.
Without that,
Yeah.
the Torah is an obscenity.
Okay, fair enough.
Without that, without that, you take a woman, your wife, you suspect of adultery.
Yeah, right.
You feed her water mixed with dirt, and if her thighs swell, she's guilty.
Right.
Are you kidding me? Last Shabbos, we read the curses that said you will eat the flesh of your children.
Right.
There is no way to worship a text like that.
Yeah.
There is, as Buber said, there is no way to hear God's voice in that.
Okay.
And the other point,
Okay.
looked at from the perspective of philosophy,
Yeah.
it is impossible to imagine
Yeah.
that a text written 3,000 years ago would have the moral sophistication that we understand today, that it would view women and others with the same sense of equality, that it would understand that the idea that there is no link, no direct link between our fate in the world and our behavior in the world.
Okay, all right. That's
There has to be development.
I
And
disagree
those
with
are
that point, but
And
that's
without
fair.
that, Maimonides is impossible.
Right.
Without this Nistarot,
Okay.
Maimonides would never have written.
All right. Rabbi Monson.
I'm lost.
Hang on, Rabbi
Strong
Monson.
letter to follow.
Right. Rabbi Monson, welcome.
First of all, I have to say that having experienced this shock of the tire, having experienced what I witnessed this morning,
Yeah.
it's almost an incentive, besides my grandchildren, to move here to
That plus, it's the only shul in America that serves chili rellenos for kiddush. Now, if Gelman, Feinstein, your grandchildren and chili rellenos don't bring you to L.A., the coldest winter day we get goes to a frigid 67 degrees. Keep that in mind, Monson. Go ahead, please.
First of all, Rabbi Gelman and I go back a long time to our really good old days, and it's thrilled to see him here. But
I'll repeat what he says. Like Torah for the hard of hearing. He said.
He said that Rabbi Gelman and I go back many, many, many years.
I know.
To our early days as Hillel directors, and it's a thrill to see him here. I also want to give a slight response.
Please.
I am very influenced by my old, very, very dear friend Dan Elazar, who is the expert in Greek, who was the expert in Greek.
In covenant.
In covenant. And that what we are reading here is a prescription for how to react to the bad stuff. Yes, Mark is right, you're right. But the fact is, we've got to live. We've got to existentially wage our own life. And this provides some guideposts. Some guideposts are unacceptable, as Mark said. Some are absolutely magnificent, as some of the, you opened up new, the Torah gives us an opportunity to refashion and restate. But I never took it, and as I get older, I take it less and less, as, since you mentioned our Christian friends, as the gospel.
Right.
It's not the gospel to me, it is a useful guidebook.
Good. 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 Come join the discussion, for God's sakes. You now have grandchildren here,
I know.
Yeah, please.
It sounds like the discussion is in absolutes, and I don't understand why that should be.
Go ahead.
There are things that happen that are absolutely a result of our choices, and there are things that happen regardless of our choices. The one possibility does not negate the other.
Yeah. So you have a theology, and you hear it by, Rabbi Gelman is right that there are people who embrace this theology. I think I gave a little talk a couple of weeks ago because there was an editorial column in the Washington Post called "The Hurricane Wasn't Caused by Lesbians." Now, you see that, you have to go click on that and figure out what he's talking about. And what the guy did was he was quoting all of these preachers across the country who were explaining why the hurricanes hit Houston and South Florida, and the answer was very clear. Houston had a lesbian mayor, and South Florida is the world capital of LGBT culture. And that's clearly why those hurricanes hit those places. And the columnist wrote, except both of those states went for Trump. Maybe they're being punished for that, So the point is, there are people who do embrace this idea that what happens to you is a result of your behavior in a very sort of metaphysical way. If you smoke, you're going to get sick. We know that. But in a metaphysical way that, the way that you behave in the world is going to bring these immediate material consequences.
When it conveniently supports the world.
That's exactly the problem. Yeah, when it supports their worldview. Okay? And that's what Rabbi Gelman is arguing. And I'm saying that I don't think that even the writers of the text believe that. Now, Rabbi Gelman is accusing me of reading back into the writers of the text my own moral point of view, and that's entirely probable. It doesn't bother me, frankly, but that's entirely probable. But
Stop me.
yeah, there you go. See, but you see, because I think that they were smart enough and they were wise enough to look into the world and see, and therefore they meant something different. They meant a different kind of reward. Right? A different kind of reward comes from following a certain way of life. When you're talking about exile, you're not talking about political exile, losing your land and moving to another place. You're talking about a sense of moral homelessness in the world, a sense of being unmoored, a place of not having an anchor, not knowing where I belong in the world. I can interpret this out of its literal meaning to a meaning that makes a lot of sense to me without a lot of imagination. It doesn't take too much to figure this out. And what really impresses me is this notion of tshuva. This notion of I have the power to change myself. And if I do, I regain a sense of belonging. I think that's a profound idea. I think it's a profound idea, frankly, that the world hasn't quite caught up to yet. That we can change, that there is a power to change. Now, change is really hard. I don't know if anybody's ever tried it, right? Going on a diet, changing the way you eat, changing the way you, yeah, many times. I've lost 10,000 pounds, right? You know. Quit smoking, I've done it dozens of times, right? It's really hard, but it's possible. And the idea that I look into the world and I see that I am accepted, I'm loved because of my shuv, because of my tshuva, because of my returning, that's, to me, a profound idea. That I'm not cursed in some way to remain on a pattern of sinfulness forever if I choose otherwise. Sorry, what?
Why did God deny it to Pharaoh?
What God denied it to Pharaoh after he denied it 5 times. If you look at it, 10 times his heart is hardened. The first 5 times he does it himself. The next 5 times, God hardens his heart. You make a choice 5 times in a row, you're not going to change. 5 times in a row, you're not going to change. You're not going to, but that's called a habit. That's almost impossible to change. 5 times in a row, then it becomes, the first time, no, the second time, wait, 5 times, that really is a reflection of human character, I think. Okay? There was a question here, yes, please.
In the book of Job, doesn't that address that whole thing? The friends thought what was happening to him was because he did something wrong.
That's a wonderful, one of these days, there's a book in the Bible called Job. J-O-B, right? One of these days, we're going to read it together. It's a fascinating book. Most Jews don't even know that it's in our Hebrew Bible. They think it belongs to the other team, right? But the truth is, it's in our Bible. And it raises this question of what happens if a man suffers and doesn't deserve to suffer. And the friends, he has friends like these, right? And they come to him and they say, you must have done something to deserve this. In other words, they quote Gelman's Deuteronomy, right? All 4 of them quote Gelman's Deuteronomy. And Job screams back at them, first of all, I don't know what I did. I couldn't have done a sin that was worth this kind of suffering. Number 2, if I don't know what I did, what good does it do to punish me? Because I can't repent the sin if you don't tell me what the damn sin is. Third of all, he says, you're going to tell me that I'm a sinner? That makes it worse. I mean, that's when someone's suffering and you say, you deserve it. My mama used to do this. I'd yell at I'd hurt my brother, then I'd hit my head on a cabinet. She'd say, God's punishing you. So, now you're a theologian? My mother's a non-believer. So now you become a believer, right? Because what that says is, not only are you suffering, but you damn well deserve it, which makes it doubly worse. You damn well deserve it? Holy cow. And then, you see, so the book of Job, and what happens at the end of the book of Job is the book of Job has to resolve this, and it doesn't quite know how.
Yeah.
And when we read the end of the book of Job, you'll see that he castigates the friends. He says, I'm going to kill your friends because they don't know nothing about God. And Job says, no, don't just kill them. Just, send them to Texas, So they'll make them preachers in Texas, They're the people who write about lesbian hurricanes, and then God has to sort of fix it at the end, and this. I think the ending is, well, we'll talk about the ending because he gives him back. You're like, oh, you can have your children back. Like, oh, great, new ones, better than the old. I mean, the Bible doesn't quite know how to deal with this stuff because it gets stuck exactly where Rabbi Gelman says it gets stuck. I'm agreeing, but you see, the fact that the book is there says my point, which is that the writers of the Bible knew this theology can't go. It just doesn't work in the world. That's the whole point of the book of Job.
They knew it, but they couldn't fix it.
They couldn't fix it.
Right.
So there's an argument between the book of Job and the book of Deuteronomy. The Bible, just like the Talmud, is written in arguments, except the Talmud flags the arguments so you can find them. The Bible, you have to go find the other side of the argument, okay? Yes, Douglas, I'm coming, I promise you.
Why?
I'm working my way down the line.
I love your interpretation.
Bless you.
But why would you write this book in a conditional language? This entire book is written in an if-then form.
Because I'm standing in the dormitory door with an 18-year-old who has these 2 luscious young women living next door, and I'm saying to my kid, just look in my eyes and listen to me. Look, but don't touch, you know? You had 2 daughters that went to Berkeley. What'd you say to them? Were you like really kind and sweet? Honey, go enjoy yourself. Make yourself the person God. No, you didn't. You said what I said to my daughter when I took her to college. All boys are scum. I got my daughter a tattoo that said that. And then after her first year at college, after this first year, I got a second one that says, if he says he loves you, look at other arm, you know? Because there is a pathos of desperation in this language. Earlier in the book, he says, I know that when I die, you're going to go your own way. And you're going to suffer for it. Damn it, just listen to me once, he says. And conditional language is that language of desperation. That's how I understand it. Now, tell me a different way to read it, but that's how I understand it.
Thankfully, this is not the last word.
Yes, thankfully it's not. But he didn't know that. It was his last word. Okay? Hang on a second. Myrla, welcome back. It's delightful to have you back. I'm glad you're well. Mwah. Yeah.
Just like the Torah begins with Bet, with the Rashid. In essence, to me, this last Torah reading depicts the 4 B's of Judaism.
Bees?
The B's.
Oh, go ahead.
Which is believing,
Belonging, behaving, and blintzes. Oh, blintzes. I was going to say blintzes. Behaving, believing, belonging, and blintzes. That will make you a Jew. Pick 3. That's beautiful. Someone else. Yeah, please. Books. She said books. I said blintzes.
I know you said.
Right.
So when you compared Christianity to Judaism, how is teshuva different than being born again?
It is in a certain way being born again, except you have to do the work of repentance. That's the problem. It's a long lecture, and one night we should do the whole thing. But basically, the word sin means something different for a Jew than for a Christian. For a Christian, a sin means a condition of your existence. It means what you are. You are sinful. For a Jew, a sin is an empirical behavior. It's an act. You committed a sin. For a Jew, a sin can be erased through tshuva. For a Christian, a sin, the condition of your being, can't be erased, except through one remedy, and that's the Son of God. You see? And by the way, listen, I got news for you. When you open the morning paper, I open the morning paper, I resonate with that. You could conclude that he was right, that Paul, who wrote this stuff, was right, when you read the morning paper about what kind of people live in this world.
That's why you start with the sports section.
Well, that's right. Yeah, which is always about righteous people, right? The domestic abusers, the criminal agents. I mean, the sports section, you can't tell the sports section from the business section anymore, right? It's like he's being traded. They go, let's finish this. This is too beautiful to not finish. So let's finish it because we're going to have to finish the year, right? So go to 1171, which is chapter 30, verse 15. Actually, go one paragraph before that to 11, because this is the end of that sugya, right? He says, "Ki mitzvah azot asher nochi mitzavcha hayom lo nifleit hi mimcha." This instruction, the word is mitzvah, and there's a big debate among the Parshanim about what he's talking about. Is he mean just this section or the whole Torah? Rashi says the whole Torah. This Torah that I'm giving you, it's not beyond you. This is not religion for virtuosi. This is not a religion only rabbis can do. This is not a religion only righteous people can do. Right? Don't tell me. It's not beyond your reach. It's not in heaven that you should say, who should go up to heaven and get it for us? What a great line. It's not so hard. And it's not so crazy. You know this already, he's saying. Right? It's not across the sea that you should say, who's going to go beyond the sea and get it for us? No, look at verse 14. Ki karov elecha hadavar. It's close to you. Where is it? Right? Beficha ulevavcha lasoto. It is in your mouth and in your heart to do it. You know this. He's saying that you know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You know, you have conscience. You have a sense of right and wrong. You bear that. You carry that. That's what I'm telling you. This is what it is. It's not so hard. It's not a virtuosi thing. You don't have to be Mother Teresa. You be a normal person, live in the world, but be a mensch. Be a human being of some value. I set before you this day life and prosperity, death and adversity. Right? I command you this day to love your Lord your God, to walk in his ways, keep his commandments, his laws, his rules. You may thrive and increase, that the Lord your God may bless you. But if your heart turns away, and you give no heed and lure it into worship service of the gods, I declare you to this day that you shall certainly perish. You shall not long endure on the soil which you're crossing. You have free choice. The whole system is predicated on free choice. You are the person you chose to be. You are the accumulation of your decisions, the accumulation of your choices. Everyone makes choices. And very few of us make a one-time heroic choice of goodness or evil. You make 50,000 choices a day. It's how you get up in the morning and say good morning to your partner. It's how you get up in the morning and say hello to the people you work with. It's how you talk to the gardener, the maid, the bus driver, and the garbage man. You choose every single day what you're going to be. You have freedom. I told you this. There have been dogs on this planet 50 million years. No dog ever woke up and said meow. Not one. Never. You can teach an old dog new tricks, but you can't teach a dog to be anything but a dog. Because a dog has dogginess in him on the day he was born, and he will never depart from his dogginess. That's what a dog, that's what any animal is. No porcupine ever woke up and said, I want to be a porpoise. I'm serious. You and I wake up every morning with the open choice of an open future. You are the only creature on the planet who has an open nature. It's open nature. Your character is your decision. And the question Moses says, what do you want to be? Because the choices you make carry consequences. Consequences for you, for your community, for the world. They carry consequences, and you can't evade those consequences. You have free choice, but you can't evade the consequences of your choice. So choose wisely. I call heaven and earth to witness you against you this day. I put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life. If you and your offspring would live by loving the Lord your God, heeding his commandments, holding fast to him, thereby you will have life and long endure on the soil which God swore to give to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them. And those are his last words. With that, he concludes the 40-year journey of the desert. And he prays. You can hear the man praying at the end, please choose life. Please choose the right way. Because I'm not going to be there to castigate you, to tell you what to do. You know, with that, you close the dormitory door, and you say, whatever happens is what Gelman wanted to happen, right? Right? Robert, you got a last comment? Because we're about to go in. I got to go and do shul.
In order to have that free will,
yeah,
you have to have randomness and unknowability within the society.
Yeah, you have to have it in the universe.
What happens is every time you did something wrong, you get punished. You do it right, then you have no free will.
You have, well, there's free. There are consequences to these decisions. That's true.